In this video, we are going to start learning how to set up dimension styles. In the previous video, I mentioned that the dimension style is next to the text styles. The dimension style tools work similar to the text styles tools. If I pull down here, I have annotative and I have standard. Again, we always want to use annotative. So if I click on annotative and then I go over here to the little arrow to the right, I can go in and I can modify. Now there's a lot more in here to modify than there was with just text. So again, I can set this as my current. I could create a new one from here. We'll come back and do that in a minute. I could actually modify this one. I can override certain things, so there's things I can do. So let's just click into the modify to see what information is in here. If I go to the first tab, this has to do with all of the lines, like the extension lines and the dimension lines. Right here it says dimension lines, down here it says extension lines. All of this is preset and I'm not going to change that, but you can change that. If I want my baseline spacing to be more than 0.380 or less, I can change that. If I want the extension beyond the dimension lines, which is this piece right here, I can change that, offset from origin, some things like that. Most of the time this is going to be preset in your template by the company that you work for. The next tab is the symbols and arrows. Right now you can see over here in this picture it has the little arrowheads. So those are called the closed filled arrowheads. If you pull down here you can see there are a whole lot of choices. Architects, we like to use the architectural tick. You can see how that changes the look of that dimension. I could even have a separate one on the other end. So I could have a tick on one end and that on the other. When I do my leaders, I could either have, like we saw yesterday in the example, the dot. So I could change that sort of thing. But in most cases, you're going to have everything set pretty much to the same thing, and we're going to leave it with the closed filled. Also, you can modify the size. Again, this is a preset setting. We're not going to change that. The center marks. When we go to actually do like a radius, it's going to place that center mark for us. We don't have to go in and place that. Dimension breaks, arc length symbol preceding the dimension text, jogs. Again, all of this is preset stuff. The only thing that you may be modifying may be the arrowheads. This next part is extremely important. If I want my dimensions and my text to be annotative, I've set that in my dimension style. But you'll notice the text style, it refers back to what we did here. So right now it's set for standard. So if I use this, my text size is not going to operate correctly. So I want to make sure that I have that set to annotative. Okay, that is extremely important. Text color, fill color, that's all done preset. Again, the text height, because I set my annotative text to 0.125, it knows that now. How it places the text. Right now, you can see it's breaking the line. I could set it to where it's above it. In this case, instead of breaking the line horizontally, I could set it to a different setting, and the view direction is left to right. Again, all of our text is reading in this direction, and that is what we want. And again, I'm going to leave it as it is. I can do text alignment where it's aligned with a dimension line. That's going to change the direction of the text, so we don't want to do that. If I'm working with ISO standards, again, I can do that and set that ahead of time. The big thing on this tab is setting the text style correctly. Fit. This is how it's going to react. You'll notice here the text falls within the dimension line, but up here it forces the arrows to the outside because the text is too big. So this is kind of what all of this is about. What should the CAD program do if something doesn't fit? It's going to do something. You can modify it if you don't like what it does with it. So again, these are standard settings that you probably would never change. Primary units. This is important. This precision here needs to match our unit precision. I had set mine to 3 decimals, so I want to make sure and do that. That way everything that I draw to 3 decimals will be dimensioned to 3 decimals. If I draw it to 3 decimals and I dimension it to these, you can see how the number is different. So it's very important that your precision here match your unit precision. And also the format. If I'm doing decimals, this needs to be set to decimal. If I'm doing architectural, it needs to be set to architectural. So this is tied back to our units. It's very, very important. Again, it's going to round off automatically. That usually does not cause us any problems. Right now, we don't have a leading 0 or a trailing 0. So basically what that means is that if I were doing feet and inches, it would do some different things. So again, we're not going to change any of that. Angular dimensions, again, we talked about everything uses decimals. And again, if I'm drawing 2, 3 decimals, I need to set that to that also. Or if it's always going to be something that's pretty common, I can just set it to that precision. For now, I'm going to set it at the same units that I'm drawing in. Alternate units. This is a way to display alternate units. You'll see that it does those in the parentheses. So I can set up whatever those need to be. This is where I could do something different in those units. Tolerances. Again, in my courses, we don't deal a whole lot of with tolerances, but in Mr. Friend's classes, you do. And if you've been in any of his classes, you've probably talked about symmetrical tolerancing. That means that it's a certain number, and that number can either be so much the same distance above it or below it. That means it's symmetrical. Deviation, this will say where you can set the top number to a certain number and the lower number to a certain number. So this gives you some flexibility there. And then limits. This is going to say it has to fall between these two numbers. And basic basically just has a box around it, and then that refers to some sort of a tolerance in your title block. So again, in here, we're not going to be doing any real tolerancing, but for Mr. Friend's class, if you're using AutoCAD, this is where you would do that at. Now I have my dimension style set. If I want to create a new one, all I have to do is select one of these two, and again, I'm typically always going to start with my annotative, and I'm going to do new, and then I can give it a new name. So in this case, I'm going to make one that's architectural, and I'm going to say continue. And now I'm going to come in, and I'm not going to change any of that, but this I am. I'm going to change this to the architectural tick. For my arrows on my leaders, I still typically leave those as a closed-filled arrow. So here on my text, again, I'm going to leave it as annotative. My primary units, I'm going to change them to architectural, and I'm going to set my precision to a 16th, and I'm going to say OK. So now I have created another text style in here. If I want that to be my current text style, I can just say set current. Or if I want annotative, I can say set current. Now that I have done that, and I'm going to keep just my regular annotative as my current, then I can begin to start to use my dimension tools. Now again, back on the home tab, you have a shortcut. But until you become a better AutoCAD user, I always recommend that you go through the annotative tab that has all of the dimension tools. In the next video, we are going to learn how to use our dimension tools.